Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, September the 6th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And I always love it when I get to invite Joel back because he was like the first big-time co-host that I had on the show. And it's been so many years that we've been doing this now, I almost forget about that at times. But I really don't, Joel. Actually, most of the times that I'm doing a show during the week, I always think, how would Joel and I have done it when we first were doing it? That's what I think about as like, okay, here's the next topic we're going to talk about. What would Joel have told me about it? So your influence on me is pretty big. It really is.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's the same with you. We when we started doing this, it was such a we clearly didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we tried and we found it successful, and for a while. And a lot to this day, we have many listeners now, and it's a much different scenario. But for a while, I think we were mainly doing it for us individually and what we got out of it. Because
pretty much,
it was me and you, pretty much. I mean, there'd be the occasional listener, but that's it was such a great beginning when we did that. So I'm glad it happened. It was part of our growth, and we continue to grow. And I look forward to it every week.
I do too, and. One of the reasons that I enjoy it so much is because we each of us bring such different perspectives. I mean, my perspective isn't even close to the one that you've had with your life experience. And I sometimes sit here with like my mouth hanging open, like, oh my God, there's another thing he went through that I can't possibly imagine. But those perspectives really they empower the conversation in a big way. And I think that's why I look forward to it so much every week.
Well, and I think that we often, in some form or fashion, our topic is involving perspective, and within the law of attraction, that's what we're trying to access, and I really feel that we have a choice of on any given situation, no matter how dire or how desperate or whatever we're perceiving it at the time, we have a choice to feel however we want to feel within it, and that perspective is missed with a lot of people, especially with sort of a tendency, and we talk about this too in therapy, to often go into what I consider for lack of a better term, a victim mentality or trauma-based mentality. So the idea that you're in charge of your traumas, so to speak, you're in charge of your perspective. The traumas will happen, and your response to them it's a message that works so well in my life, and it's changed everything in every aspect of my life. But it's also met with a lot of from a lot of people, a lot of resistance. So there's people who live in their trauma. They do not want a different perspective. Their trauma in some way comforts them. And that victim mentality is what defeats a lot of people. So our message of hope and life is going to happen. It's a package of events that happen, and every day you become stronger if you allow it to strengthen you, and you get to a point where you realize you can just handle whatever comes along and flip that perspective almost instantly. It's like the ultimate key to a great life.
It really is. In fact, I've been playing around in my head today with my own little self-made quotation, if you will, about perspective, although I framed it in terms of happiness, but it amounts to the same thing. Basically the idea that my one job, my real job in life is to feel happy, because when I do, everything else I'm looking for starts to show up. And when I start from that premise, a few things happen. One thing that happens is my own perspective changes. It's no longer the depressed perspective, because now I'm focusing on, okay, my job's to feel good. My job's to feel happier than I felt a minute ago. And next minute, I'm going to feel even happier than I do now. I'm working on different ways to do that right now. That's my job. That's my job throughout the day. And the more that I remember to do that, the better my day ends up becoming. But the other thing that happens, though, is that when I am in that happier place, I'm doing my job, so to speak, right? I'm doing the one thing that is more important for me to do than anything else. That's when I start to see everyone else's perspective. A lot more than I do when I'm not in that place. Something about being in that happy place makes it easier to see everybody else's perspective. I mean, do you experience that? You're a therapist. You're dealing with people all the time. Is that similar to what you run into?
Absolutely, and that's sort of the basis of everything we're talking about right there. It wraps it up into a nice package, and and what we're saying sometimes, Walt, is so much harder than it sounds. Our audience often will give us feedback, or I will get feedback in my individual practice about, well, that sounds great, and I know you're right. Then the comma, but,
But
and then the filling in the blanks.
right.
But here's why that doesn't apply to me. When in reality it does. But it's such the challenge every day when we wake up is and whether it's happiness, and choosing happiness is a form of choosing your perspective, obviously. And whatever your baseline is, happiness and gratitude tend to be the two baselines of where most people find the ability to operate with the law of attraction most effectively. So choosing that perspective of happiness or gratitude, it's the launching point for everything you desire. It's what you're after. It's what a negative perspective is something that is a choice, and unhinging that message from people's lives is I can't help it. This all happened to me. And it is the opposite of what we're saying. It is all this happened, and you can help how you feel about it. You're not responsible for what happened to you, but you're completely responsible in dealing with what happened to you, fixing the results of what happened to you. If you do it correctly or do it at all, you're strengthened by the event. You're not defeated by the event. And that's the power of the law of attraction, is a strengthening. No matter what comes along, it will strengthen me, strengthen me, strengthen me. And it's such taking a deep breath and moving forward and saying, I will survive this. I will be able to move on. And doesn't mean that there's not trouble or struggle with attached to it, but I'm strong enough or develop the tools to be strong enough to deal with this. And that's at our disposal. And learning to tap into that is what this show's about. You do it with your other co-hosts, and the beautiful thing about LOA today is you have multiple co-hosts with multiple perspectives of their own. Not everybody agrees with my view, and I don't agree with everyone else's view. We all agree on the overall process, but how we get there is again, there's multiple ways to access this. It has to match what you personally believe, but at the end of the day, the law of attraction responds to the emotion you're feeling and what you're putting out into the field, so to speak. And when that field, the law of attraction field is what you're attracting. You attract back to you what you put out. I think we all agree on that point completely.
And yet, how often, I'll speak for myself. How often do I know going into my day that I need to be in a positive, happy, the happiest mind space I can get into, and that's my main job. And yet, within a very short time of starting, the work part of the day, all of a sudden, all that goes out the window, and now my work job is, I just have to get this work done. I have a whole list of things I have to get done. And we slip into that so easily because that's what seems more real at that time. It's hard to remember sometimes.
It is what's real. It is what's real. But when you understand the answer lies not in what's real, that's clearly what's real. You still have to get your work done. That's true, but your perspective toward the work is what's going to make the difference. But one of my life hacks a long time ago was I'm really good at what I do with my life coaching and my public speaking and the stuff that I do in those areas. I'm really good with that. However, where I really have always historically struggled is the paperwork side, the bookkeeping side, the detail part, which really attacks my ADHD brain. So my tendency was to dread that. My tendency was to look at that in a very negative perspective and procrastinate. And then that became a bigger problem. When I understood that, look, for me to function, I have to do the paperwork. I have to get the billing done. And with billing comes a minimal amount of paperwork, but it still has to be done. So I had to change my perspective of the work. It's still as tedious as it ever was, but I'm excited. I've now attached the overall concept. It's just a piece of my day. So when you're facing stuff in your day and and most of the time it's what seems out of our control that frustrates us, that hit out of left field, wow, I didn't expect that or this. And so it's not really that we don't believe we can't deal with it. It's just with the realization that that event is out of our control, and that's what attacks us the most. And we get into an awfulizing state of mind where, well, since that's out of my control, the obvious answer is it's going to affect me in a negative way, versus, well, that is out of my control, but I can approach this from what is within my control. And the end of the day perspective is mine and mine alone to control. So I can look at the work day and say, yes, I have to get this work done is the original thought. But I'm blessed to be in a position to be able to get this work done. I'm capable. I'm able to do it, and I'm going to get through it right now. And when you do that, you then own it, and you have taken action. And it's a lot different than having to get the work done. Is when you know I have the ability to get it done. I want to put my nose to the grindstone if that's the view I need to do, and I want to get it done, and I'm going to knock it out. And almost inevitably for me was I get it done so much quicker than I thought. And instead of anticipating, this morning is a great example. We started our show a little late today. My son Justin started middle school, and there's no way to get him to middle school and start the show at 8:00 because I'm in the car, and that's I have to be at my desk to do that. So I told Walt, I said, we're going to start the show 15 minutes late. Well, this morning I got up, and the traffic situation near our school, they've just opened a new road. They're working it out. I have confidence that it will work out, but the difference in me timing school was I can be there in 2 minutes or it takes me 15 minutes. There's just no way to predict it. All traffic based. And this morning I got in my car. I caught the light just perfectly. I turned right. I drove right up to school, let Justin out, turned around and was back with it at 8:05. We could have started at 8:05.
Crazy.
And again, my perspective of it in the beginning was a negative and anticipated the worst. Well, today it worked out absolutely perfectly. And I acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge every day it won't work out exactly perfectly. And it doesn't matter. I'm in control of all of those things that operate in my brain that somehow suggest that I don't have control. I don't have control of events, but my perspective is all that matters in this equation. We hear often of people who I'm working with a lady right now from another part of the country, and she has a gambling problem, and she has a horrible financial mess that she couldn't deal with, and I've watched her over the last couple of months when she went from helpless victim of this, and her family is not going to bail her out, and I've watched her slowly start realizing I'm in charge of this. I'm going to start knocking it out. She started doing the steps necessary to turn around. And last night she said, maybe I need to consider getting a better paying job. And I'm like, well, I think if you need money, that's a very logical choice. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about opportunities, and she started with, and everything I would suggest that would get her that I think is a good idea for her. She told me why that wouldn't work. And about halfway through, before I could point it out to her, and she said, wait a minute. Everything you're saying, I'm saying no to and just dismissing.
Oh, good for her.
She said, that's what I did in the beginning. We started talking. She said, now I'm really getting what you're talking about. She said, I want to go back and tell me everything you said. I'm going to write it down. And before I say no, I'm going to think about it and look at the opportunity. And I said, I guarantee you'll do that. And what if you get the job of your dreams? Because she's in a very unfulfilling job right now. I said, what if you get the job of your dreams and you make a lot of money and you get this stuff paid back much quicker than you thought? And then you start living this way. What if you view this event that you're viewing as the most traumatic event you've ever been through as the big turning point in your life? And she said, well, I'm a long way from that. I said, well, not as far as you think. and it's such a great thing to see where that turn starts to happen. And last night she had a big turn when she realized I'm automatically dismissing everything because of this overwhelming fear of everything. But what if I were to get, a situation where not only I get the stuff paid back quicker, get back on my feet quicker, But beyond that, what if this leads me to that chapter of my life that I haven't felt fulfilled in years? And I said, that's what we're doing here. And it's great to see people make those discoveries.
Oh yeah, that's fabulous. It's exciting, and it was great to hear that she said, I recognize what I'm doing. That's probably the hardest part,
Right.
just noticing it. Once you notice it, now at least you can do something about it. But noticing it can be the hardest part of all, and I'm really impressed that she did that. By the way, we've got something really cool happening today. We often ask on these podcasts, if somebody wants to call in and talk to us, we'd love to talk to you. Hey, Joel, we got somebody who wants to talk to us today. How about
Let's do
that?
that.
All right. Well, let's bring
Yeah.
him on. I'm going to unmute Lewis. And Lewis, how you doing today?
I'm very good, thanks. And you?
Doing great. Where are you calling from?
I'm living in London,
In London. Oh, all
in
right.
the UK, and I'm a South African.
And you're a South African. So you're displaced but comfortably, it sounds like.
Very much so.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I tell you, this shows my age, but I keep thinking, my God, technology is wonderful. We're talking to a guy in London. That is so cool. So what can we do for you today? How's it going? What's on your mind?
Very good. I've just had my 2-year-old wake up, so I might have to juggle.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll work with what we have to work with here, but
Yeah. So I have bumped into Abraham Hicks about 3 years ago, and consequently, I've pretty much been teaching it from the day I started learning it.
really, wow.
And absolutely had a great experience moving through the paces of learning it while teaching it at the same time, which I find is one of the best ways to learn.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's something that I learned a long time ago. I actually picked that up for the first time from a book by Richard Bach in the 1970s. That what we learn best while we
Illusions?
teach others. Illusions, yeah, that's the one.
Big fan of that. I've got about 4 copies on my shelf.
There you go. Yeah,
Argue for your limitations, and they are yours.
they certainly are. That's exactly what we've been talking about. Joel was just talking about somebody who decided she was going to stop arguing for her limitations.
I know, isn't it great when you can plant seeds in people's minds, Joel, and watch them grow?
It's so amazing, and and like you're saying, and I love that. What a great message you bring to the show today. The idea that the moment you start learning this, you can start teaching it, and there is no better way to learn than to teach. And I just think that sums it up. I wrote that down when you said. Thank you for saying that. It's a good reminder, Lewis.
You're welcome. Just for clarity, my name is Louis.
Sorry.
I know you Americans tend to pronounce it Louis.
Yeah, we do that. That's our fault. Sorry.
It's a French name, and they don't pronounce the S in the end.
This is true. This is true. Yes. So, Louis, my apologies. I will get the name
No
right.
worries,
I promise
no
you, I
worries.
will eventually. It may take me a while, but I will get there.
Yeah, I have the same problem. But we're arguing for limitations, aren't we?
Yeah, that happens too. Oh, that's funny.
So there's one thing I really wanted to ask you, Walt, because I was listening to one of your podcasts and it got me excited because you said you were going to an Abraham Hicks seminar, and I haven't been to one yet, so it really excited me. And then you said you had a question, and that question was exactly my question, although I have a slight difference to it. And you wanted to understand what it really does expansion look like.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was wondering if you ever did get in the hot seat, or if you ever did get an answer to that.
The answer is no and yes. Because when I got to the seminar, to the workshop, my wife and I went together, and it came to the point where Abraham was opening it up to the audience, and everybody's hands were shooting up, and I'm just sitting there, and my wife turns to me and says, "Aren't you going to raise your hand?" And I said, I don't think I am. And she says, "Why?" I said, I think I just got the answer. And she said, "Well, what was it?" I said, "The answer is I'm focusing on the wrong stuff. If I really want to get the stuff I want in my life, don't go off on the tangents. Go right to the core of it. Start getting happy."
Yeah. Okay.
So I just said, it's like all of a sudden I was no longer interested. Now, am I still interested? Yeah, actually I am. But in that context, on that day, I lost interest in it, which was really weird.
It often happens, isn't it, when you get to the teacher? the questions you had vanish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was quite surprised. It was like it just didn't matter anymore for some reason.
So the clarity of my question to them would be something like, me, Louis de Souza, have chosen to come into this contrasting universe to expand. And what have I added? What have I personally added to the expansion? What does it look like? That's what I wanted to know. It's really quite. It's a question I haven't seen answered anywhere yet. So.
Do you have any sense of an answer for yourself? I mean, because it's your life, you're living it.
Yeah, absolutely. The only sense I've got is it's a vibrational thing.
And what does that mean?
The answer is in terms of vibration. The expansion of vibration is about the only kind of conclusion I've come to myself.
But what does that mean to you when you say it's vibrational? How does that manifest in your life? What does it actually feel like?
So when you're going through an experience, it's a great question actually. When you're going through an experience of what you don't want, and you shoot off to the expansion of the rocket of desire, what you do want. Okay, and during that expansion process, that is kind of what I would imagine it feels like. When you're saying an aha moment.
Mm.
So basically, expansion is what it feels like to feel. It's all the stuff that we feel that leads to that rocket of desire producing some result.
Yeah. That is kind of my answer, but I just love some clarity on an answer from them, because it would be amazing to have the collective consciousness answer that question.
Well, we don't necessarily have the collective consciousness, but we have the next best thing. We have a Joel. Joels are really good to have.
How would you answer that one, Joel?
Well, and I'm going to really dumb up the conversation here, so I apologize ahead of time, but I'm going to use an American movie reference. There's Louis, have you ever seen the movie The Matrix?
Absolutely. One of my favorite, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a moment in The Matrix near the end where Neo, quote unquote, the chosen one, he's basically been killed by the Matrix, and he just sort of wakes back up, and he starts looking at it, and he realizes he sees the code. It no longer was what he thought it was. He was just immediately, they fire all these bullets at him. He just holds up his hand, and the bullets stop, and he realizes that awakening, that moment of like, where have I been? And that the expansion for me is when that awakening, when I realize that right now I'm talking to you in London, and we are vibrating on a very similar connection. I'm connecting with you. Mm-hmm. I am connecting with like-minded people throughout the, both past and present. And I apologize for getting way out there for some of our audience, but this collective conscious that we're talking about, that expansion into it, there's that moment in the movie where I get chills every time I watch it, because that's sort of the awakening that I had when I realized my expansion is going. It's not so. It manifests very well in my life and the abundance of my life. And I'm not even talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about just that overall feeling that I'm overlooking such an incredible. My world is so much larger and vast than I ever dreamed possible. As a small boy with limitations that I placed on myself, realized those limitations are the only thing that have slowed me down and continue to slow me down. There are no limitations in my life, and that expansion is just the more I buy into that, the more it just continues. So just that moment that you're talking about of and I don't know if it's always a moment, but in my case, it feels like it's an ongoing set of moments where, yeah, I get it, and it's so much bigger than I ever dreamed. And every day I think I understand how big it is. It's so much bigger than that. And that's my best explanation, if that made any sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of really out there question, but it's something that, I understand the rest of the teachings incredibly well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm still trying to figure a lot of them out, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they're good. I've never found anything that just didn't resonate with me. But sometimes I read something or I hear something and I say, okay, sounds good. How the hell do I use that in my life? I have no idea yet.
It's true. I mean, that's the process, because you in a way unlearning, which is
a lot of that.
not accurate.
Mm.
You're unlearning all the old programming that you've got,
Yep.
and then you're putting in all this new programming, and then you've got to learn how to run with it, still getting this old programming hanging around the background.
Yeah, that's a good description. That's exactly what it feels like too, because it feels like you're being pulled in multiple directions, right?
Yeah. And then, one of the discussions, I have a sauna where I go to twice a week, and we've kind of created a group, and the group has landed up being philosophical and discussing life, the universe, and everything. And of course, the Abraham Hicks teaching, law of attraction, has come to the fore. And we have some amazing discussions with people. And one of the questions I like putting to them is, what's the importance of being negative or experiencing negativity or negative emotion?
Mm.
Well, I'm still sitting here amazed that you have a sauna law of attraction group.
Oh, we have some great discussions.
I mean, that's got to be a first.
What an incredible reality TV show that would be.
I'm writing a book, Conversations in a Sauna.
There you go. I love it. Right off the bat.
That's a good title.
I want the first copy.
But going back to the why it's important to be negative. So the way Abraham Hicks explains it is, everything's always working out for you. Okay.
Right.
So when you know what you don't want, which is a negative emotion experience, you have a better idea of what you do want. So everything is always working out for you all the time.
Right.
All the time. And that's when you can really, 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 really taste the step 5 that they talk about, which is really getting into the juice of, wow, right at this moment when I'm feeling negative emotion, I have a great idea of what I have a better idea of what I do want now.
And that becomes the complete answer. That is the law of attraction, the complete answer. The contrast of the negative, and all that stuff is important, because it does when you find yourself with an anxiety based or viewing that, what is it, first of all, that I don't want in this equation, and then the obvious question then becomes, just like you're saying, what do I want now? And so when you learn to use that tool as effectively as you're describing it, it is what they talk about. It's sort of where you get in control over it, because no matter what's happening, everything is always working out for you, especially the lessons that you need. The universe is bringing you those lessons to teach you these things. What do you want? I mean, I've had events that I thought were the worst events of my life that turned out to be amazing. It gave me everything. It gave me the answer to what I truly did want. And I can't imagine my life without the lessons that were brought to me by the things that I thought were horrible at the time, brought me the greatest lessons, which got me where I am today. And that's such an incredible tool.
It's so incredibly powerful and simple. You know what blew me away before it was explained to me? I didn't know it. So if I look at my life, I've been from the age of 8 searching. Okay, so my mom, I went to my mom at the age of 8, consciously remember this vividly, and I said to her, Mom, what is truth, love, and God really about? And she turned around, looked down at me, and go, huh? So from that point on, I realized I had to find out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, it comes to the point where the parent just can't answer that endless stream of questions anymore, because they just have no idea what to tell you.
Yeah. And so during the journey, I've been searching all over the place. Serious kid, always wanting to understand about life, truth, and all that kind of stuff, and nobody else to talk to. So, going on this whole journey and then not understanding this basics, that when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. The power of, the power of negativity and the importance of it.
It's funny how when we're presented with it, it's so simple.
So simple.
Yeah. And yet before we're presented with it, it's so difficult. Why is it that all of a sudden it simplifies everything?
I know the law of attraction and the way it's explained by Abraham Hicks is just clarified things to an umpth degree. I mean, I've been all over the place. You have no idea. But it's been an incredible journey. So satisfying. I mean, it's like buying Monopoly. I like this analogy. You go out and you buy a game and it has no instructions on it. How do you think you're going to play the game?
Exactly. Well, that's what my thought was throughout most of my life. I kept wondering, why is it that life does not come with an instruction manual?
Rule book, yeah, exactly.
It should. Exactly. I mean, really, how else are you supposed to make sense of it?
What if that's the point?
Well, that's an interesting question.
That is life to me. And Louis, you said something that I was 12 when I went to my mom, and I remember I was brought up Southern Baptist here, and we had a really unique view of God, so to speak, and I asked her, I said, I know there's something there. I tangibly feel it's there, but what I'm being taught is not what I feel is right. What else is there? Mm-hmm. And she looked at me like, okay, well, this is, crazy. And I went to my pastor at my church and asked the same question. And he basically told me that Satan was interfering in my life and I was, blah, 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 and all these other things. I tangibly knew that wasn't true. And I searched. So when I found what I was looking for, it was this amazing feeling. And the question of, I love the you get a game and you don't know how to play it. That's sort of, what if that's the point of life? What if that's what we chose to come back to do, to have the instructions removed from us and figure it out? Maybe that's the beauty of it. One of my favorite Abraham Hicks things, when someone asks her why, being in pure energy, why would you want to come back and experience this? And my best answer is, how else would you know what chocolate tastes like? You have to be in physical form to experience chocolate. Well, being in physical form and figuring it out and having the awakening, to me, that's the entire point. That's the beauty of it all. That is this. And a lot of people maybe go through life never understanding that. But when you have this and you realize, I figured out something. Here we are, where all three of us have an incredibly different background from different locations, but yet we all have come to the same conclusion. That is amazing and exciting to me.
I agree completely. The other aspect to this is, Abram says, conscious co-creation is more delicious.
Absolutely.
So we chose not to have the rule book, but we chose to enjoy finding the rule book. But a lot don't ever find the rule book.
And that's the point. Yes, a lot of us don't, and but when we do, I think that's why we value it so much. And one of the things that takes place, I don't even know. I've only been to one of them, but there's these events where here you go to like a dinner party, and they have a murder mystery where you act it out. You're part of the they have all these clues, and
that sounds
I'm sure you've heard. Yeah. And it's like, and I've equated that one time I went through it. Of course, I thought I was absolutely right and had it figured out from the beginning. It was totally wrong, but it was a very fun event to do. It turned out I did it. I didn't know I did it, but apparently I did it. But within that, it sort of gave me that perspective to look at, just like you're saying, the excitement of this, when you can, if I'm viewing life as something that I am creating, and I figured out, and I'm trying to figure it out, when if I were to go take my son and say, look, his first car, if I bought his first car was a 900 horsepower turbocharged Porsche, he's going to run it into the wall. It would be a silly thing for me to go do that. However, if he learned how to drive one day, he could drive a Porsche and drive it safely, only because he would learn the skills to do it. I view the law of attraction as basically a 1,200 horsepower, incredibly powerful machine that you have to figure out how to use it. And when you do, the power's there the entire time. Your ability to extract the power in an effective manner is our journey. And that's so powerful to wake up and realize you are creating that every day. And you are the ultimate power. You are the power within that. And when we get together and we talk about it like this and reinforce it, and other people pick up on it. It's sort of like the mastermind philosophy in Think and Grow Rich, where as a group, individually, we're certainly powerful. And then as a group together on the same journey, we become just immensely powerful.
So when Abram says, within you is the power that creates worlds, you kind of get that feeling, wow, how did I not know that? How did I not know that there's a part of me that is that powerful?
Well, actually, I think I did know on some level, to be perfectly honest.
On some level.
I think I really did know. I mean, it wasn't a surprise when I heard it. It was more like an affirmation, like, well, thank God somebody finally recognized it. I wish it had been me, but somebody recognized it.
Yeah, I think you're probably more in tune than me, because it was quite an aha moment of, how powerful. I mean, you often get those feelings during your life where you feel invincible. Not often.
It's not so much invincibility. It really wasn't that. It was more that it just made more sense. I mean, just based on what I knew about, say, quantum physics and the observer effect. If you have an observer effect at all, that to me is the most mind-bending idea. There is an observer effect. It exists. I mean, in theory, according to what we understood about science before the observer effect was noticed, the observer effect was impossible. Truly, the universe was just this mechanized place that just everything worked the way it did. Introducing the idea of an observer and an observer affecting what was happening in some unknown way, that was blasphemy.
To the science community, yes.
Well, and to the way we were taught in school. I mean, I remember being taught in school, the way this is the way the universe works, and the laws of science, the laws of motion always work the way they work, and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, an observer comes along and everything shifts. That to me is a major aha moment, because if an observer can shift stuff just by observing, then all the old rules have gone out the window.
Absolutely. We have to rewrite the rule book completely.
Yeah. So now finding that rule book is even more difficult.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. It's an ever-changing, for me, it's an ever-changing evolution where discovery of these facts, discovery of these tools, I think instinctively at points of my childhood, for no explicable reason, I was in tune with that idea that I do have the power of this creation. I remember thinking that the world was built around me as a child on some level. Like, and I've never told anybody that when I was a kid, but in some way I was like, yes, I was feeling that, and I was picking up on this energy, but yet I was being programmed with an entirely different set of information that didn't support what I was feeling. And so eventually reality gave way. My reality became what I was being fed, not what I was instinctively knowing. So when you come full circle as an adult and make these discoveries, or some young people that I work with that make them, admire the young men and women that I work with when they figure it out when they're 12 or 13 or 14, it's an amazing journey for them. But it took me longer than that. But when I did, it's like, instantly I understood. I wasn't wrong this entire time. I still don't know what I have in my hands, but I still realize what I was feeling when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 was something that, given the right information then, I could have jumped all over it. But I was almost, not almost, I was told the exact opposite, that I was powerless over all of this stuff. Reality was dictated to me. And it's something that after you hear it enough, it's sort of, sort of like the Stockholm syndrome. When you're captured, you sort of believe the other side. Patty Hearst did that with her kidnapping, and you eventually sort of become on the other side. And I sort of was kidnapped into the other thinking, and it accepted that as my reality. And then when it's exposed to you, it's like, wow, I get it. And so that's where I wake up every day, and I remind myself but my reality is my choice every morning. And I am the creator of my reality in my world every day. And there's no more powerful feeling than that.
It's funny, too, how the experience of gaining that information in that way is both tremendously empowering and humbling at the same time. The empowering part is knowing, wow, all of this is within my power. And the humbling part is realizing, oh God, all those things that happened, they were within my power. It was me. It wasn't all the other people I was blaming. It was me.
Yeah. It's interesting. The law of attraction has changed a huge amount of my thinking. In the past, I would be thinking about, who has more power, which group, who, the rich controlling this. I would be thinking, different thoughts about, what an alien is and isn't, and a ghost is and isn't. But all of that kind of vanishes, and you start having other, respect for the power of source happening, and there's kind of a different awe and a way of looking at things, but a lot of the illusions are just being all shattered, all of them just completely gone by realizing what they are, and you can access a ghost by tapping into a different vibration, and you can do all these things, and it's just really the clarity with which everything comes out is just amazing.
It's fascinating also to watch other people going through the process and at various stages in the process. Joel gets to see that every day in his practice, but you don't have to have a practice in order to see it. I mean, here in the U.S.
I have a sauna.
You have a sauna? Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, a sauna, yeah.
It's actually now very famous, but no, I mean, here in the U.S., there's a thing going on right now that, and we're not needing to get into the political side of it, but there is right now a lot of attention on what's called the deep state. And the idea of this deep state is there is this group of very wealthy, very powerful people pulling the levers behind the scenes to manipulate everything, and the government is all undermined and all this other stuff. It's a fear-based position, but it's also a position of not just fear, of victimhood, of like we are powerless before this deep state. And it's fascinating to watch how people are in their relationships to this belief that they have. And I almost want to just keep watching and watching, because I know over time some of them are going to be exposed to concepts like the Abraham Hicks concepts and begin to realize that all of that's an illusion they're creating.
Completely blows it out the water.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I just remember what it was like for myself, and it's fascinating to watch other people as kind of like the eyes open up over time. I think it's really great to watch. It's exciting. It's one of the reasons I do the podcast, because I want to see more of it. I want to experience more of it. I want to have more and more people opening their eyes and seeing it and understanding and empowering themselves and getting a front row seat as it happens.
Yeah. It's really, really satisfying, pleasing. I don't know what the word is. It's just to watch people grow with clarity. And I like using that word clarity because it really is clearness. All the old stuff's been wiped away, and you're just left with the simplicity and clarity of the teachings.
So what's your clearest moment to date so far? Like what's the biggest piece of takeaway that you've had so far?
Biggest piece of takeaway I know I was just about to talk about it was your emotions are your guidance system.
Okay. Yeah.
That blew me away. How simple, how profound, how it isn't taught in any religion. How can they teach it without disempowering themselves?
More importantly, for me, it's the empowerment of me. That's the thing I love about it. I love that it gave me the opportunity to relax, to just, because now I always wanted to have a way to communicate with my inner being. First of all, I didn't even know if I had an inner being. That was kind of a doubt thing for me. Yeah. And then I realized, okay, there is an inner being. Abraham's told me about that. All right, I buy into it. I want to communicate with it. Oh, I've been in communication all along. I just didn't know it. Anytime that I feel an emotion, it's a communication. Yeah. Oh, wow. That was my big aha.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they make the clarity of when you're feeling negative emotion, your higher self is saying, I don't agree with your thinking.
Yeah.
How simple is that? How logical is that? How clear is that?
How hard it was for me to find that out.
I know. I've taught my daughter, my 10-year-old, and I'm obviously working with my 2, but my 10-year-old understands the law of attraction to a fair degree now. And she got a report from her school saying, you should be a world peacemaker.
Oh, nice.
And you're always helping and aligning people and making them happier, and all the rest of it. And it's just amazing. She just does it completely naturally, but she understands what she's doing now, and she's doing it a little more consciously than she used to, because she was 7 when I started teaching her. And it's just, she's gone from strength to strength to strength, and it's just amazing to watch. And it's just such a simple thing, and she shares it. She's always sharing it at school and everywhere.
Well, that's one of the things that Joel has talked about a lot, because he works obviously with a lot of kids, particularly in the foster care system. And Joel, you mentioned often how quickly they respond when they're introduced to this information.
Yeah, I have been fascinated in an admiration of these young people who don't have the years of negative programming, how quickly they not only buy into the concept, but quickly apply it in their lives. It changes them instantly. I can think of if I were had the ability to be in charge of everything, I would make this one of the most important. Starting in 5th grade, it would be a mandatory class to teach this, because it is the ultimate reprogramming or programming of knowing your emotions are in touch, knowing that you're able to do that. The younger people buy that because they don't have the years and years and years of negative stuff that we are filled with every day. And so the fact you're teaching your daughter from age 7, she's obviously receptive to it. The school sees it. What if every parent were doing that? What an incredible world we'd have. That to me, that's where we're headed. That's my ultimate belief is when we all get around to this, and we all get there in different ways, but we all start applying that. The world, not just our country or your country, but the world will start to feel it.
Yeah, I think it's true.
It was very interesting, because this lady came to Abram and said, "My son has got a question for you." He said, "Why are old people so grumpy?" And this is one of the best questions we've ever been asked. The answer is very simple. When you want something and you get it, it's the most satisfying thing in your life. And when you want something and you don't get it, it's not satisfying. And old people have wanted a lot of things and haven't got them.
It's true. I can attest to that. I'm one of them.
Yeah, me too. I understand with clarity that is absolutely how it is. Yeah. That's why the young people, when they come into this world, are so in tune, because they are coming from the expansion of the source energy. Everybody is exactly the same vibrationally at birth, because we're all coming in with the new, refined, expanded source energy. If you're an alien, if you're a human, and if you're any human anywhere on the planet, it's exactly the same for everybody.
You were mentioning before Abraham workshops, and one of the things I loved about the workshop that Louise and I attended, and you see it also on the workshops when you view them on YouTube, or if you're a subscriber to one of their packages or whatever, but you see it over and over again, young people getting into the chair, into the hot seat, and often very, very young. And I think to myself, whenever I see that, wow, if I had gotten this information when I was that young, and then just fill in the blank with whatever you want to fill it in with. But that's what I think about. All these people who are so young, who are getting exposed to this information now. Whoa, what's going to happen over like the next 20 years as this large mass of young people start to apply themselves without the same kinds of baggage that us older folks carry around all the time?
Yeah. It's like that song, "If I Knew Then What I Know."
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. That's just it. Oh, my goodness. Well, this is great. I'm so glad you called in. And it's one of those things what we often ask for, and we finally got the wish. So I have to mark this down as a banner day. I manifested one of my wishes today. Thank you, Louis. You were actually a manifestation. Did you know that?
Of course. I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Thank you so much for calling in, Louis.
Speaking to you guys, I really appreciate speaking to people that are well versed in it as well. because I don't get that opportunity often. So I really appreciate it.
Well,
Thanks.
take the opportunity. I mean, I hope that you're a regular listener. If you are, call in again. You know, we love having
Definitely
calls.
do that. I would love to.
Yeah, please do. And please thank your child for being so understanding that the child's father just couldn't be available because he was talking to us on LOA today. So, thank you very much
So
for that.
I can tell you that my 2-year-old, whenever I have people around that I need to have important conversations with, like one lady had what Abram would term as a quantum leap.
Hmm.
So she went to an energy thing in America and New York, and it just blew her away. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but at the end of the day, she was so with source energy flowing through her that she had to be restrained
Oh dear! Wow!
forcibly in the mental institution.
Oh my God!
Okay, and she came to me and said, "Lou, you're one of the only people who would understand." And she sat and we talked for 2 hours. But my 2-year-old went in, sat down on the TV, turned it on herself, and left us alone for the entire period. And once we started, we came back.
That's great.
And now she woke up when I started speaking, and she went straight back to sleep. And it happens time and time and time again.
Oh wow!
When I need to speak to somebody, she just gets.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, because we're told over and over again how when we're born and when we're very, very young, we're still very in tune, in alignment with non-physical, and we actually have to unlearn that over time. So it makes sense. She's totally in attunement with the non-physical world. She realizes, oh, Daddy's playing with non-physical again. I'll just leave him alone.
Yeah, you just have that great appreciation of it. It's like, wow,
that is great. Well, Louis, thanks so much for calling in. This was wonderful, and please do call again another time, okay?
Thanks very much, Walt and Joel.
All right, take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See
you later.
Okay. Bye. Wow, how great was that? I mean, I'm telling you.
That's awesome. We look in such a great message, with the reinforcement when you find like-minded individuals like Louis and our listeners. It's such a one of the most fascinating things I mentioned when we were talking is that so many different people from just incredibly different backgrounds all arrive at the same place. Just excites me. It reinforces that, wow, that we're onto something. We really have tuned in to the power that exists out there, and Louis clearly brings that to the table. I'm so glad that Louis is listening, and other listeners I'm really grateful for as well, because it just reinforces the point of this, Walt.
It does, and I was making a big deal out of the fact that he was calling from London, but the simple fact is I've been watching, to a certain degree I can tell what parts of the world our listeners do come from, and we're now at the point where about 60% of our listeners are from the U.S. The rest are from overseas. And a large chunk of them are from England. A large chunk are from Australia. Smaller chunks from other English-speaking countries. But it's truly turning into a global listenership. In fact, we now have Esther from Down Under, who is our new Instagram person. She's putting out Instagram messages for us, Joel, helping promote the show, putting our quotes from the show on those messages and so forth. I mean, who'd have thought that? 4 years ago, when we were doing our show together, we had a tiny handful of listeners. Would you have believed that we'd have somebody contacting us from Australia, volunteering to do our Instagram work for us, and doing such a brilliant job?
Oh, I wouldn't have believed it, because it one of those things that you almost don't think is plausible. But when you realize the application is not limited, and the law of vibration, the vibration that we're putting out of this, it isn't limited by any boundaries. It goes anywhere. And it's funny you mentioned Australia, because I have just noticed how in tune, and Australia seems to be well represented in people of law of attraction thought and thought vibration in general. It is really a big deal down there. And I one of the things that I have noticed is I've been contacted, from a couple of times from people in Australia, and it fascinates me, because first of all, I've always wanted to go, and second, the fact that it's again different backgrounds, different situations, but yet what an arrival at a place where wow, this is a real thing, and people report the same benefits down there as they do up here. Even though their toilets go backwards, I mean, we'll let that go. We won't even. I won't hold them accountable for that.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very relieved to hear that, Joel.
Yeah, exactly. So, but and the Australian people, or some of them, and you know how I feel about resilience, and when I think of resilience, I think of the Australian people, and so the fact they're law of attraction and resilient, and it's just such a not all any of our listeners mean a lot, but the opposite side of the world is tuned in on what we're doing, and I just can't be more pleased with all of this, and people like Louis who are really tuned in. He's a teacher, he's a student, all at the same time, and I talked about that perspective. That's what our original topic today was about, being your perspective and being in control of stuff you never dreamed you were in control of. And spending our life sort of discovering that. And even though there's days with all this knowledge, as you mentioned earlier, Walt, there's days we wake up and easily get distracted by the stuff that's out there. And trust me, we live in a time where the distractions are more prevalent than ever before.
Oh, they're rampant.
But they are. But the ability to tune all that out and focus on the energy that you're trying to put out there is I think the pendulum, as weird as this sounds, I think all of this distraction stuff is going to actually attract more people to what we're talking about. Because when you wake up from what you're being programmed from, and you realize neither side of the programming is accurate, your programming from within is what is mattering here, and that's big.
It's the whole ball of wax right there. What the programming is and the control that we have over it. Because when we have the control,
yes.
We have the control. We have it. It's there. It's in our hands. It's just up to us to learn how to use it and use it the way benefits us the most. That's what we're looking for. With just a couple minutes left, I want to make sure I get a couple messages out there. First of all, thank you for Louis for calling in. I mean, we've been asking about that for a while now, and we do get an occasional caller, but it's so great when it happens. And we want to encourage any of our listeners to call into any of the podcasts. The instructions are on the homepage at loatoday.net. It's pretty simple. Louis did have a little trouble when he first connected, but he did a little reboot of the Zoom app, and boom, he was in, and everything was great. So take advantage and call us, because any of the co-hosts, we all love it when we have somebody calling in. Second message for those of you who maybe this was a new podcast to you, maybe this is the first episode you listened to, become a subscriber. You get lots of good stuff every single time that we do one of these episodes. And we're doing 11 of them a week. I mean, there's a lot of content coming out here with a lot of different perspectives. Speaking of perspective, I mean, there's a total of 8 of us involved in all of this. So take advantage and become a subscriber. Again, the instructions are right on the homepage at loatoday.net. You can also find us on iPhones by going through your podcast software or into the iTunes store, either one, basically the same thing, and do a search on LOA Today. You can also find us on Android by first downloading some podcast software if you don't have it already, and then open that software and do a search within there for LOA Today, and you'll find us there as well. So please do become a subscriber. And then finally, one last message for everybody. All of our subscribers, we're asking you, every time you hear a show and you're hearing something that you like, post something in your favorite social media about loatoday.net, because it's helping to increase our number of people we're reaching. And that's the goal. We want to get more and more people aware of this. That's what we were talking about during the podcast. Wouldn't it be cool if more and more people were exposed to this idea, and that the law of attraction is actually an empowering thing? Well, in order for that to happen, they got to find out about it. And you can be a part of that just by putting messages out there. So please take a moment and just post something on your favorite social media channel about loatoday.net. Hopefully something nice. Hopefully not that you hate Joel and Walt, but anything that you put out there is going to be helpful, right? So
absolutely, yeah. We'd prefer the positive. But you do what you got to do.
You got to do it. Yes, that's it. And Joel, before we leave, let's also put out a note about how to reach Joel Elston, who's one of the most amazing life coaches on the planet.
joelelston@gmail.com. My website is joelelston.com. Feel free to reach out or respond. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. But almost hard not to reach me if you want to. But if I can't help you, I certainly will help you find somebody that can.
And there's nobody who can do it better. Joel, it's been great. I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
You too, Walt.
And we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.